Hello students, this is History Grade 10, Lesson 9, the making of modern Ethiopian states from 1855 to 1913. In the previous lesson, we discussed about the impacts of colonial rule on Africa. Those were the social impact, economic impact, and political impacts. And there were also the positive impacts of colonial rule. Now let's proceed to the making of modern Ethiopian empire. The process of the making of modern Ethiopian empire involved the unification of north and north central part on one hand and territorial expansion in the southern part of Ethiopia on the other. Ethiopian emperors like Emperor Tewodros, Emperor Yohannes, and Emperor Menelik played a crucial or a pivotal role on the process for the making of modern Ethiopian empire. In this lesson, we will see the attempt of each Ethiopian kings for the formation of modern Ethiopian empire. So, students, at the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain the cause, process, and impacts of unification and territorial expansion. And then you'll compare and contrast the roles played by Emperor Tewodros, Emperor Yohannes, and Emperor Menelik in the making of modern Ethiopia states, or in the making of modern Ethiopia. The making of modern Ethiopian state went through two distinct phases, two stages. The first phase was the unification of different regions and peoples in north and north central part of Ethiopia. After they accomplished the north and north central part of Ethiopia, there was also the second phase. The second phase involved the territorial expansion into the southern half of Ethiopia. So let's see the process of territorial unification in the north and north central part of Ethiopia. Territorial unification started with the end of the era of chaos, the era of Zemene Mesafint, the era of upheaval in Ethiopian history, the era of instability, ended with the coming to power of Kasa Hailu, or later his crown name was Emperor Tewodros II. Kasa Hailu, or Emperor Tewodros II, made serious battles, human and material sacrifice for the United States. He was the first who attempted to restore the power of the monarchy, and he was the first who reflects the idea of unification of Ethiopia. This is the picture of Emperor Tewodros, the man who wanted to unite Ethiopia. First, who reflects the unification of Ethiopia, who stopped the division period of the Zemene Mesafint. It was Emperor Tewodros II. So Kasa, or before he became Emperor Tewodros, Kasa became prominent when he was serving his half-brother, the Jazmach Kemfu of Dembeya. The Jazmach Kemfu of Dembeya helped Kasa to defeat the Egyptian in the Battle of Welde Kaltabo in 1837. With the help of the Jazmach Kemfu, Kasa became victorious over Egyptian in the Battle of Welde Kaltabo. By the way, this was the early threats of the Egyptian expansion. It was during the period of Zemene Mesafint. Egyptians dared the periphery of Ethiopia. They started the first aggression when Ethiopia was in the period of Zemene Mesafint. Our country's boundary aggressed by the Egyptian invaders. So Kasa attempted to stop their expansion when he was in his half-brother, the Jazmach Kemfu. Later, in 1848, Kasa also fought against the Egyptian at a place called Debark. In Debark, Kasa was defeated. But in this battle, he took a lesson from Egyptian. Because of the Egyptian superior military organization, discipline, and better armament, Kasa took a lesson from Debark. Kasa began to think about how to increase his military armament, how to create his country's well-disciplined army. That's why the battle helped Kasa to think about the modernity of his army. The major regional lords that defeated by Kasa before his coronation. Coronation means before he become kings of Ethiopia, before he become emperor of Ethiopia, before his ascension to the throne. Kasa step by step overcome the different regional lords before he crowned. So first it was in Guramba, the Jazmach Goshu of Gojam, defeated by Kasa in 27-1852. In Gorgora Bichen, Kasa became victorious over Birru Aligas and 4 other Jazmaches in April 12, 1853. Then after, in the Battle of Aishal, Kasa became victorious over the last king of Yeju dynasty called Ras Ali. And then the Jazmach Ube of Samin and Tigray defeated by Kasa at the Battle of Deresge on 8 February 1855. Finally, Kasa Haile was anointed by Abune Salama, the then patriarchs of Ethiopia, at Deresge Mariam on 9 February 1855, and Kasa became Tewodros II, king of Ethiopia. Why he changed his name from Kasa to Tewodros? Kasa changed his name to Tewodros because there was a prophecy in medieval book entitled with Fakare Jesus. In this book, by the name Tewodros would come, and the country will be prosperous. To meet this, Kasa changed his name to Tewodros II. After he became emperor of Ethiopia, Tewodros began a unification of Ethiopia. First, he led a campaign to Wollo and then Showa. So Kasa used very aggressive action for the unification of Ethiopia because the time was very difficult. Regionalism was highly strengthened during his period. So he wanted to create a strong centralized government by appointing individuals. So he led a campaign to Wollo different time. He led a campaign also to Showa to different time. When he went to Showa, he defeated the last king of the kingdom of Showa called Haile Melekot. He defeated the king Haile Melekot of Showa in the battle of Barakat. Then after he took the sons of Haile Melekot called Menelik to Makdala. So Kasa used this kind, so he replaced the local kings by individuals who did not have a claim to royal family. So Kasa wanted to create centralized government with forceful approach. He led expedition many times to different parts of regional lords. He faced a vicious circle of problems during his period. But Tewodros faced internal and external challenges for the unification of Ethiopia. Internally, Tewodros' administrative and social reforms were opposed by regional lords because he wanted to create centralized government. Due to this, regional lords did not give recognition to Tewodros. And his modernization endeavor also did not accepted by the regional lords. The second the second internal problem, the clergies also saw his involvement in the affairs of the church as a dangerous to the church's authority as an institution. What kinds of policy Tewodros did have on the church? Tewodros reduced the number of deacons and priests in a church. 1 priest and 2 deacons in one church. This highly affects the church. Secondly, he also exempted the church land and gave it to the peasants. This creates a dangerous problem. He violated the hand and the glove relationships of the state and the church. Ethiopian clergies began a door-to-door anti-Tewodros propaganda. Even church and state conflict reached the peak point when Tewodros imprisoned the then Abun. He imprisoned the then Abun. Then after, people gave him their back to Tewodros due to this action. So the external factor, externally, the Tewodros sent a letter to Queen Victorious to support the modernized endeavors that he intended to modernize his country. He'll need military efficiency and he needed to modernize the army. Due to this, he sent to get an assistance from European. He sent a letter to Queen Victoria, but Queen Victoria did not respond. Then after Tewodros imprisoned the then European missionaries. When Tewodros imprisoned the European missionaries, Queen Victoria sent a letter by one of the envoy called Hormuz Rassam. Hormuz Rassam came to the courts of Tewodros using a letter, but Tewodros did not accept him. Finally, the British army came to Ethiopia, and that marked the end of the period of Tewodros. Tewodros committed suicide in Magdala in April 13, 1868, but his legacy continued. So, following the days of Emperor Tewodros, three regional lords contending each other for power. Those regional lords were Wakshum Gobaze Gabramedhin of Lasta, Kasa Mircha of Tigray, and Menelik of Showa. All these three regional governors competing for power. Say, for instance, Wakshum Gobaze Gabramedhin became Emperor Takla Giorgis II. He ruled the country from 1868 up to 1871. Even just after 1872, Kasa Mircha became Emperor Yohannes IV, and he ruled the country from 1872 to 1889. Menelik of Showa also ruled the country from 1889 to 1913. So, all these regional governors competing each other for power just after the days of Tewodros. This shows us Tewodros restored the power of the monarchy. This is one of the legacies of Tewodros. Then, Gobaze or Wakshum Gobaze Gabramedhin or Emperor Takla Giorgis reigned a very short time. He was defeated by Kasa Mircha in Tigray at a particular place called Assam in July 1871. Gobaze went to Tigray to get the submission of Kasa Mircha, but he failed in the Battle of Assam. His time was ended in 1871. Kasa Mircha crowned in Aksum Sion Church and named Emperor Yohannes IV, and he ruled the country from 1872 to 1889. Therefore, let's see the reign of Emperor Yohannes IV. What are the similarities and difference between approach and methods of Tewodros II and Yohannes IV to the formation of Ethiopia? Kinds of difference and similarities. First, let's see the similarities between Yohannes and Tewodros. Both had been continued a state-building project as their prior agenda. They took the unification of Ethiopia as a prior agenda. Both of them use unification as a major point. Their difference, unlike Tewodros, Yohannes followed different approach for the unification of Ethiopia. By the way, Yohannes used both diplomacy and war for the unification of Ethiopia. He succeeded the unification of north and north-central part of Ethiopia. He introduced a decentralized system of administration. Emperor Tewodros wanted to create centralized unitary government. Emperor Yohannes was very flexible. He used both diplomacy and war, whereas Kasa was very rigid, or Emperor Tewodros was very rigid approach. Even Yohannes permitted for the regional lords to exercise a great autonomy or a great independency to rule their regional villages or regions. Best examples of Yohannes' liberality, Yohannes gave recognition to Menelik as a Nugus of Showa in 1878 in Lecce Agreement. So, there was a conflict between Yohannes and Menelik. This disagreement resolved diplomatically in Lecce. So, in Lecce Agreement, Menelik agreed to drop the title of King and to be King of Showa. And Menelik also agreed to pay annual tribute to Yohannes. Yohannes also agreed Menelik's claim over Showa. And Johannes also agreed to give Menelik a power, and to give Menelik a power, to give Menelik autonomy or independence to his region called Showa. So this shows how Johannes were liberal in solving administrative issue. The second thing, he was also designated Ras Adal of Gojam as a Nugus Takla Haimanot of Gojam and Kafa. He gave autonomy for both Showa and Gojam. There was also the Council of Boromeda. Council of Boromeda was one of the unification endeavor of Emperor Johannes IV. This was intended to create the unification, religious unification of Ethiopia. It was a policy of Emperor Johannes. Its objective was to end religious controversy within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So, there was disagreement. There is a minor disagreement in the Orthodox Church. This disagreement resolved. So Johannes created an open discussion among different sects of the Orthodox followers. Finally, he declared Tawahdo, the Tawahdo as official sects of the state. It was in this way Johannes resolved the disagreement. The second thing, not only for the Muslim and also for the other religion also, Johannes declared Ethiopia has to follow one religion. So Ethiopian Muslim highly affected in Boromeda. He declared conversion or confiscation. So some peoples of Wollo converted to Christianity. A best example, the kings of Wollo, Muhammad Ali, converted and baptized and became Ras Mikhail. So others who had conversion just after Boromeda, they migrated, they left to the neighboring region like Arsi, Gurage, Jimma, and Sudan. Then, those Muslims who did not want to convert to Christianity fought against Johannes in Wollo. They were organized by Shah Tola or Shatalaha Ja'far. He was resisted the unification agenda of Johannes. So Johannes, in general, Emperor Johannes IV succeeded in achieving the unity of predominantly Christian provinces. He achieved the unification of north and north-central part of Ethiopia, the state including Wag, Lasta, Samen, Bagemder, Amhara Saint, Gojam, Wallo, Shawa, and Marab Milash. So Johannes betterly pushed the idea of Emperor Tewodros. Let's proceed to the second territorial expansion. Tewodros and Johannes made a state building their mission and struggled to achieve that goal. They pushed some success. The most successful kings of Ethiopia was Emperor Menelik of Showa. Emperor Menelik succeeded due to the following factors. What are the factors that helped Emperor Menelik to be succeeded the unification of Ethiopia? The first thing, his possession of firearms. He used modern firearms. He diplomatically allied with Italian and other Europeans to get firearms. These firearms helped the Emperor Menelik to expand toward the southern part of Ethiopia as a king of Showa, and his control of resourceful regions. His control of resourceful regions helped to succeed his mission. The second the second thing that helped Emperor Menelik to become successful was he used both diplomacy and war. This means the methods of Menelik's territorial expansion were peaceful submission. This is a diplomacy, through diplomacy. Forceful subjugation means through armed forces. It was in this way Menelik succeeded the unification of Ethiopia. So, Emperor Menelik's territorial expansion can be categorized into three phases. The first phase was occurred when he was a king of Showa. When he was a king of Showa, I mean before his coronation. coronation before he ascended to the throne. And second, the second phase, after coronation, after he became emperor of Ethiopia, since 1889 up to 1896. This means after he became emperor and up to the Battle of Adwa. The third phase was after the Battle of Adwa. So the Emperor Minilik's territorial expansion took 3 phases or 3 stages. So let's see the first stage of this one is Emperor Minilik, who was successfully created the unification of Ethiopia, Emperor Minilik II. So the first phase started from 1865 to 1889. By the 1870s, Minilik incorporated Tulama and Mecha Oromo territories. And the second state, the Shawa Oromo notables, the Shawan Oromo general like Ras Gobana Dache played a pivotal role in the territorial expansion and the creation of modern Ethiopian empire. He led expedition to different parts of Ethiopia to succeed the mission of Emperor Minilik. So this one was the picture of the photographs of Ras Gobana Dache, the Minilik's war general. So in this phase, in the first phase, it was the northern Gurage who faced strong resistance. The people called Kistani or Sodo Gurage. In the first phase, the northern Gurage, the Kistani or Sodo Gurage peacefully submitted without resistance to Minilik. This was due to religious similarity, geographical location. Both the Kistanis are Christians. Due to this, they peacefully submitted. While the western Gurage and the south Gurage called the Silte, and the western Gurage led by Hassan Injamo of Kabena, strongly resisted Minilik's force until Ras Gobana came to the Gurage land in 1888. They resist after bloody war. They submitted to Menelik in 1888. So Menelik's territorial expansion to western and southwestern Ethiopia was concluded through both forceful and peaceful submission. When talk about the southwestern region, including the Liqa state, the Gibe states, so how did these states succeeded? So just after the Battle of Imbabo, what happened in the Battle of Imbabo in 1882? Walaga became a bone of contention, a scrambling area between Minilik of Shawa and Takla Haymanot of Gojam. Takla Haymanot spreading from Gojam to Walaga region. Minilik also spreading from Shawa to Walaga. These two regional lords fought at a place called Imbabo in 1882. It was Emperor Minilik that was successful in the Battle of Imbabo. Then after, Minilik spread towards the southwestern part of Ethiopia. Minilik occupied the Liqa state and the Gibe state from 1882 to 1884. This state peacefully submitted to Minilik. Those states which submitted to Emperor Minilik just after the Battle of Imbabo were Liqa Nakamte, Liqa Kelem, and Jimma Bajifar. This state peacefully submitted from 1882 to 1884. During the first phases of early resistance, Emperor Minilik faced stiff resistance and opposition from the region of Arsi and Harar. The peoples of Arsi submitted to Emperor Minilik just after the Battle of Azuli in 1886, whereas the people of Harar also submitted to Emperor Minilik after a bloody fighting called in the Battle of Chalanko. In the Battle of Chalanko, the last kings of Harar, Emir Abdullahi, were submitted. So just after the occupation of Harar, Minilik's territorial expansion temporarily stagnated or temporarily interrupted. So why territorial expansion interrupted from 1887 to 1894? Why did territorial expansion stagnated or interrupted just after the occupation of Harar. There was two factors. The first factor, throne. Emperor Menelik gave priority to his throne, priority to the ascension of his throne, because Emperor Johannes died in 1889 at a place called Matamma. Then after, Menelik began to think about the throne. He gave a priority to his throne than expansion. The second factor that responsible for the interruption of territorial expansion was the Kafukan, or what we call it, evil day in Ethiopian history. So this was, as I told you, cattle were died due to the imported disease called rinderpest. This disease imported by Italian. So people starved, Ethiopian people starved. Mainly the northern parts of Ethiopian people were starved. Due to this, Emperor Menelik tried to transfer the people who were starved in the north towards the southern part of Ethiopia. Due to this, due to the prevalence of this famine, Emperor Menelik's territorial expansion stopped from 1887 to 1894. Let's see the second phases of Emperor Menelik's territorial expansion. So, starting from 1889 to 1894, areas like Dauro, Konta, Kambata, Bale, Sidamo, Gamogofa, and Walaita were incorporated. Among these, Emperor Menelik faced strong resistance from the people of Walaita. The last kings of Walaita, called Kao Tona, put up a strong resistance against Emperor Menelik. Later, he was captured in 1894 and Walaita was surrendered. In the second phase, there are also other states that incorporated to imperial army. Those were Gedeo, Borana, and Konso. So let's proceed to the third phases of territorial expansion, which was started from 1896 to 1908. So this was occurred just after the Battle of Adwa. After the great success of Ethiopia in the Battle of Adwa, the states called Kafa were incorporated. It was in 1897. Kafan people resisted the imperial army. They were organized by Tatogaki Shericho. Tatogaki Shericho was the last king of Kafa. He was captured and defeated in 1897. So similarly, Emperor Menelik extended his authority towards Ilo Ababora, Shaka. By the way, this region submitted to Emperor Menelik just after the Battle of Adwa, Ilo Ababora, Shaka, Gambela, and Benishangul. We can think Sheikh Abdurrahman Kajolis of Benishangul. So the territorial expansion was concluded with the signing of boundary agreement with the neighboring colonial powers such as British, France, and Italy. That concluded until 1908. The modern Ethiopian Empire created just after the Battle of Adwa in 1908. Let's do the classwork. Students, the first question, choice question says, why did Tewodros II fail in his attempt to reform? Because A, the reform were too radical. B, he used decentralized administration. C, he was considered to be an illegitimate ruler. D, he faced stiff resistance from the church and regional lords. To question number 2. Which one of the following strategies of rule did Emperor Johannes IV try to practice? A, administrative and religious centralization. B, administrative and religious decentralization. C, administrative centralization and religious decentralization. D, administrative decentralization and religious centralization. Student, let's do the classwork together. I believe that most of you attempted the question. So, question number 1. Why did Emperor Tewodros fail in his attempt to reform? Because A, the reform was too radical. It says the reform was too radical. The reforms were not too radical. He used decentralized administration. Rather, Tewodros used centralized administration. It's not a decentralized administration. He used centralized administration. So he was considered to be an illegitimate ruler. No one considered him as an illegitimate or illegal ruler. So our answer is he faced stiff resistance from the church because he violated the church's principle. And then he faced strong challenges from Ethiopian Orthodox Church clergies and the regional lords. So our answer is D. Which one of the following strategies of rule did Emperor Johannes try to practice? A. Administrative and religious centralization. So he did not use the administrative centralization. Rather, he planted administrative decentralization. So this one is false statement. Administrative and religious, both religious, administratively he used decentralization. Rather, religious centralization. So this one is a false statement. Administrative centralization and religious decentralization. Religiously decentralized means creating many religions in different parts of Ethiopia. He did not open a door for the different religious practice in Ethiopia. Rather, he ordered the practice of Tawahdo. So this one is false statement. Administrative decentralization, because he permitted autonomy for the regional governors. Administratively, he created a decentralized government, and he wanted to create religiously centralized states of Ethiopia. This was the approach and policy of Emperor Tewodros IV. So our answer is D. So let's sum up our today's lesson. The twin process which lead to the making of modern Ethiopia were the unification of north and north-central part of Ethiopia on one hand and territorial expansion of the southern half of the country on the other. Emperor Tewodros was the first emperor who attempted to unify Ethiopia. Emperor Johannes IV was renowned for his attempt to introduce a decentralized system of administration and terminate religious controversy within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. He remembered by two basic activities of Emperor Johannes IV. And then Emperor Menelik was credited for his unprecedented territorial expansion and the creation of the present shape of Ethiopia through forceful subjugation, peaceful submission, and boundary delimitation treaties. So Emperor Menelik was the most successful in creating the unification of Ethiopia. Student, in the next lesson, we'll learn about external aggression. And in the 19th and early 20th century, Ethiopia aggressed by foreign invaders such as Egyptian, Mahdist, Italy, and also British. So we'll discuss how these European invaders threatened the sovereignty of Ethiopia and how Ethiopian respected their boundary. So we'll discuss in the next class the aggression and the unity of Ethiopia. This is all about the day's lesson. Be study hard. Goodbye.